Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today we're going to be talking to Jake Remmert from Data Driven Strength, a brilliant mind in the world of evidence-based training, and now a freshly minted bodybuilding competitor. In this episode, we're peeling back the curtain on Jake's journey from prepping for his first show to stepping on stage and everything that came after. We'll be talking about his post-show recovery, the ups and downs of his competitions, and the lessons he learned along the way. Some expected and others completely surprising. Whether you're curious about the mental and physical challenges of prep, or you just want a fresh perspective on training, nutrition, and competing, you won't want to miss this one. And guys, as a reminder, at Revive Stronger, we are coaches. That's how we make our living. That's what I spend the majority of my time doing, is coaching people, whether or not that to be to the bodybuilding stage, or for a photo shoot, or just to physically feel better, mentally feel better. And also, we like to educate our clients along the way. If you have questions, we won't just tell you because I said so. We'll explain exactly why we're doing certain protocols so you can learn along the way, whether or not that to be applied to your own clients. We coach a lot of coaches, or to apply it just to yourself in future. So if you are interested in very personalized one-on-one coaching with the team, that's always linked in the description. Otherwise, grab your headphones, settle in, and let's get started. Here's my conversation with Jake. So Jake, you and me are actually in a very similar position right now. Am I right in saying tomorrow or the next day, this weekend, you'll be a month post-show? Is that right?
Wow. Yeah, I guess so.
So you compete at the same weekend as WNBF Worlds. Your final show is the same weekend.
Yeah, I think I was one day before you.
Okay. Yeah, on the Saturday. The time has flown by, right?
That's wild, dude. Yeah.
In prep, a month is a lot. Like, whereas now we're post-show, it's like, hey, the time has flown by. Like, what they say, when you're having fun, time flies by. That's not the saying, but you know where I'm going.
For sure.
How are you doing? Like, if you were to assess yourself, like versus when you were prior to kind of competing, how are you?
Man, I'm good, dude. I think that I was very satisfied and happy with how the prep went. Everyone's always you always wish you placed higher, right? And there was a couple, I got second in both of my shows. I got second in the novice category both times, and both times, literally every person I talked to was like, I don't know how you didn't get first. So like stuff like that, I'm just like, but it is what it is. It's and you talk about this too. Like, it's so much more about the process than it is about the actual show day. But the show day still matters, right? And I cared about it a lot more than I thought I would. But so I ended the season feeling fantastic, and then I was like, yeah, man, like I really want to not gain as much body fat this time as I did previously. Just stay a little bit leaner. Like, I don't need to stay super lean, but make my life a little bit easier in the future. And I was talking to Ryan, my coach, and I was just like, dude, like, you give me like 200 carbs a day and I can chill. Like, I'm fine, dude. And like, my post-show meal was Subway. Like, like, it just wasn't this crazy, whatever. And so
you go crazy at Subway. Get some of the cookies, the foot-long cookies, like you.
It was a little tempting. I did get one of the normal cookies.
They're good. I rate the cookies.
Oh, dude, they're great. They're great. I need to try the foot-long one. Once I get a little bit more space from the show, maybe we'll try it. It's like,
I see those. I'm like, yeah. How do people kind of think about eating these? Like, it's crazy. Anyway,
I have a massive sweet tooth. I'm sure I could do it.
I could definitely do it. To be fair.
Yeah. So that was kind of the goal, was to like not do the super slow reverse thing, but just to keep the reins on, just because psychologically I felt very able to do that. It didn't feel like it'd be super stressful, and it hasn't been. I haven't been quite as tight with it as I initially expected, which is interesting to me because that first week, 2 weeks after the show, I was like, this is easy, dude. Like, this is fine. And then the more space I've gotten from it, the more I'm just like, this is dumb. I just want to eat something. I just want to be normal, So like I have gone out and done like, like deliberately choosing like, hey, I'm gonna go out and get ice cream with my girlfriend because there's this fancy ice cream shop that does it up for Christmas and we're gonna go have fun, right? Like, none of it has felt chaotic or uncontrolled or anything like that, which I'm very happy about because I've been there. It sucks. It's horrible. So it's felt, while I haven't had the absolutely perfect, first few weeks, it's all been by choice, and it's still been really good. I mean, at like 7 pounds above stage weight right now. Like I'm still not going
Not
crazy
bad
by
at
any
all.
means. All 7 of those pounds are on my belly, which is hilarious, and that's how it goes. But genetics for you, I guess. But yeah, I mean, a little bit of weight gain, more flexibility. I feel psychologically way better. Like just my ability to focus and be present in the moment is like night and day difference. And the, hunger and cravings are nothing crazy, pretty manageable. Physically, I feel a lot better. Like I don't feel like a zombie all the time and all that. So yeah, man, I'm in a pretty good place. Honestly, I really can't complain. Other than I wish the body fat would spread out a little bit more, but it is what it is.
It's one of those weird things where that's something I really noticed when I got home to the UK after New York. I didn't really notice it in New York, but I think it's because I pretty much maintained when I was out there. I don't think I really gained that much because my step count was just so high. And Cliff is fairly, when we talk about reverse diet versus recovery diet, he's in the middle, and maybe he's not as assertive as at a recovery diet. So
Mhm.
I think given my expenditure was so high, even though I was eating like the pizza, the bagels, and I wasn't
Yeah,
going crazy by any means, as you could probably imagine.
yeah.
I didn't know, I was like waking up like super tight every morning. But then when I got home, I was like feeling around my stomach. I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, like I just feel like there's a layer there. That's kind of
Hmm.
dissipated now, and it's moving other places like around my glutes and hamstrings. So it
Nice.
is just a interesting time. I'd be remiss not to ask Jake, because I think it'll be a really good lesson for people. Last kind of prep, obviously you didn't actually end up stepping on stage, but you went through the process,
Yeah.
versus this one. You mentioned you did a much better job basically of managing this post-show period. What do you think led to that? Was it kind of a consequence of the preceding, like the way you manage the prep as a whole, or is it just lessons and maturity combo?
Yeah, I think it's a combo. I've actually thought about this quite a bit. I think some of it is, I think there's some physiological stuff, like being my first time getting on stage, like we didn't run me into the ground, right? Like I think Ryan was very intentional about like we're going to do the best that we can, but I don't, I don't want to just destroy your desire to bodybuild again. And I'm really happy with how lean we got. Obviously, I can get leaner, right? Like, I had one little line starting on my glute, right? So, obviously we can get leaner, but I was still really happy with it for the first time, and I think that helped that I just wasn't, you know, WMBF pro level shredded, and also that we weren't. I didn't hold that conditioning for a super long time. I was talking to Derek Van Every the other day, and he competed. This is his first competition season, and he went to Worlds, which is crazy.
He's
But
Canadian, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I met him. Yeah.
yeah. He said, yeah, he's like, man, Steve is awesome, all this. But the I was talking to him, and he held his peak condition for like a month or 6 weeks or something because he just kept adding shows because of how well he was doing, right? And I think holding stage condition, the length of time for that is like an independent factor of how bad you feel by the end. So I think that helped that we kind of like we were in and out basically.
Yes.
It was like this kind of slow, marathon kind of pace and then a sprint at the end. And then we were able to kind of pull back. And I think that helped physiologically. And then I think that the psychological piece of sort of mentally preparing well ahead of time, like I'm talking like the last 8 to 9, 10 weeks of prep, just being like, okay, this is gonna end, and I don't want to feel like I did last time. And what did I learn from that? What can I do to try to avoid that? And just really trying to wrap my head around sort of making it more habit based in a way, just so I don't have to make as many decisions. I think some of that was kind of what got me last time. And just being having gone through it once, right, and just being a little bit more prepared that way, it helps in and of itself. But what helped me so much during the prep was like a not even like an I don't know. I always want to say autopilot because that's the easy word for it, but it's not that. But it was just like, this is just what I'm doing. I don't need to question anything. I don't need to, oh, should I do this? I don't know. Is that a valid excuse? Maybe it's none of that, right? We're just doing this. And I tried to like, well, what if I just embrace that for the recovery phase also, right? Like, I don't need to think about whatever. I don't need to have pizza and Chinese food and donuts and ice cream. Like, that stuff's going to be there. There's no rush. There's no sense of urgency that has to be there. I'm doing this recovery plan that we set out. Don't need to think about it. I'm just doing that. And I think that helped a ton. And specifically the urgency stuff of like, all that food is going to be there. I can space it out. It's fine. I'm going to be much happier. Like my body image is going to be better. All that stuff that they get so intimately tied together, right? Like how you perceive how you look, because you're gonna think you look fatter than you actually do, right? It's so even like that first prep, I look back at pictures from when I was really struggling, like that recovery phase, and I remember I just felt like so much garbage at the time, and I was like, man, I just lost all that, I put all the fat back on, and but now I look back at those pictures and I'm like, you look fine, dude. Like, it really wasn't, it's not a big deal at all. So it's always like a warped perception. But yeah, I think leaning into all those things have helped tremendously. And now that I've gotten a little bit of space and I'm noticing some of those hunger and cravings are sort of increasing, which I'm assuming is just, mentally relaxing a little bit. And, but now taking those things and making deliberate choices of, is it worth holding back more and like letting that stress build? Or if I give myself this little release valve, is that actually going to be, in the grand scheme of things, the best choice? And that's a slippery slope, right? It's easy to convince yourself of that when it's not actually the case. But so far, I think I've navigated it pretty well. And yeah, I'm super happy. Like I feel pretty much completely normal at this point. Still some hunger and cravings, but like physically, I feel completely normal. And so I don't feel like I have to put more weight on to feel good and all that kind of stuff. So
That's great.
We'll see. Yeah.
I'm not quite there. I definitely have days and sometimes within days where my energy gets real low and I get like the hanger of prep kind of thing where you're just moody. And sometimes I do what you said, where you have that release valve where I'm like, man, I'm just going to eat something to kind of get me through. Yeah. And I had it actually the other day and I was like, actually, Steve, you just want to eat this protein bar. If I put in front of you just like a piece of fruit, you'd eat it, but you don't really want to have it, do you? And I'm like, yeah, my cravings are just increasing because I've allowed my food palatability to increase a bit from where it was. I was like, that's interesting. So I had, I don't know, some nuts and like an apple or something. And I was like, okay, that got me through that moment. Whereas like you said, if I'd gone for the more palatable thing, that might have just pushed me too far in that wrong direction and just gone, woof. And something you mentioned really nicely there, a few things. One is kind of your approach within your prep led to a smooth transition out. It wasn't like a yo-yo extreme process, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, don't know, they're like, man, I'm not lean enough. And then they go like, put the hammer down and then they're trashed and feel way worse than they should. And then they rebound out. And then the other one is expectations. I think building that expectation of the post-show phase is going to be hard. Like this time round, for some reason in my head, the last post-show phase, I was like, yeah, it was a breeze. Whereas I don't think it was. I think I just forgot what it's like. And don't get me wrong, for me, the post-show period is definitely easier than before stage, because whilst the goal of stage is removed, the improvements in energy level, mood, all of that is just like unbelievable. It just feels so good that I'm like, hey, if I'm a little bit hungry here, if I have to continue to eat in a certain way that maybe isn't what I want to do long term, like fasting for a period of time, or when I was in New York, I was like trying to find Whole Foods to like buy a bag of carrots just to like, you know, abate some of the hunger and the cravings. I think that's okay. And I think that's the problem people get into, is they expect once the show's done, it's just like, yeah, now normality, right? I should feel normal quickly. And they lose all their structure and they don't, they can't appreciate that feeling hungry is okay and that some low energy levels is okay, and they want to get back to normality ASAP. But it's, as you I think mentioned, there's a time component to that as well. You can't suddenly rush on all that weight and expect to feel normal immediately. It's like, that could lead to quite some trouble. And then you get all the negative mental aspects of like seeing yourself with edema. The thing that I was surprised how much it would impact me was like the puffy face. I'd like look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, man, I'm looking fat. I'm looking fat in the face. I don't know why I really ended up hating that. I was like, man, I haven't even gained much weight. Why is it all gone to my face?
Yeah, I have the same thing. I hate it's like, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day and I was like, I really wish that my face would stay as lean as, maybe not like as lean as it possibly got, but like right now I put a little bit more on and I look like a normal human. But like, it's not just this round, whatever. But like, if I could stay in this pocket, that'd be so nice. But I don't know. We'll see.
And that's actually something I really appreciate this prep is, it's just like the body holds fat in so many places and you can't pick where it takes it from. So you get the people with real death face coming through and they could have that like 10 weeks out and their glutes are still soft. Whereas I know my face never really gets to that like real death face. So I kind of like it. And so that's why I like post show, I'm like, damn it. Now I look like I've really done some damage here. Although, like you mentioned, I think it's very much in our own heads versus like the reality there. You mentioned some of your shows. I want to make sure people know how you actually did. So what shows did you do? How were your placings? How did kind of they go show to show? Did you feel like you improved, the peaking went better?
Yeah. So the first one was November 9th, where there was only, I did the novice and the open because I was like, I'm here. I might as well maximize the time, right? It was a weird show, man. It was like, it was super well organized, but then with everything leading up to the stage time, everything was great. And then right before we get on stage, I think we were right after bikini. And there was just so many competitors that they just kept comparing them, right? So they kept delaying. So they're like, all right, guys, we're half an hour out. Sweet. I was like, cool, right? Sodium, a little more sugar, start pumping up. And then I was like, all right, another half an hour. So we wound up, we got delayed by like an hour and a half or something. And this is my first show ever, right? And I'm just like, everyone else is
typical.
Everybody else was really frustrated. And I was just trying to just be like, okay, whatever, man. Like, we'll just roll with it. So it is what it is. But I'm glad I got that experience of just seeing how that can happen, right, with the delays. But we go out there finally, and there's only 3 of us in the novice and 3 of us in the open. Like, there's just not a ton of bodybuilders. And I got second in both. With the open, cool with that, right? I think that was very fair. With the dude who won, would look phenomenal. Like, he absolutely should have won. With the novice, and it's the same complaint that I had with my second show, was that the judging seemed to very strongly favor size over anything else. Looking at pictures and videos and stuff, like my lower body was as big, if not bigger, than the dude who beat me. His upper body was way bigger, right? Like, no comparison. Conditioning wise, I think we were pretty similar. And then my posing was, as humbly as I can say this, way better than anybody else, right? I'm super proud of that. Like, that was such a big emphasis point for me, was that, I'm as big as I'm not going to build more muscle through prep. I'm going to get as lean as I can get, but I can't control who else shows up and how lean they are and whatever. But like, I have full control over how good my posing is. And like, I know I can, if I just put the time and effort in, I know I can nail that. So I'm really, really happy with that. That was so gratifying. But I still got second, and all the feedback was just like, yeah, you just got to get bigger. Awesome. Thanks. That's helpful. But still, nonetheless, it was the first show and it was just a great experience. And I learned a ton, timing out the pump up and like all the little things that people can tell you sort of what to do, but you got to do it to like really understand, So that was great. And then I was looking back at pictures I was just, on such a high, right? Like I get up, I was fighting so hard not to cry on stage because I was just like, it's just such a great feeling, right? To finally get up there. And, we completed the mission that I left incomplete 4 years ago now, which feels crazy to say. And it was amazing. And then I'm looking at pictures later over the next week or so, and I'm like, we definitely spilled over. Like I looked better the night before, which was purely my fault, right? The plan, I have, no doubt that the plan was good. It was just one of those things that when I'm nervous, I tend to drink a lot of water. And so I think I overdid that, and I think I overdid the sodium as well. Because I was nervous, one, and also kind of running around, so I didn't like measure things super precisely. I didn't have my food scale with me, so I had a bag of pretzels in the car, and I was trying to like, make it work. And I think I did okay, but certainly could have been better. But and then we finished the show, right? I'm looking at the pictures like that, and I'm talking to Ryan, and we're like, okay, we have 2 weeks until this next show. Pretty happy with the placings, all things considered, blah, blah, blah. What do we do? And we were both just like, bro, we're here. Let's just dig. Why not? Right? It's one more hard week. So we did it. We got my carbs down to 70 a day. Not super fun. It was only for a couple of days, but it was like 100 and then 70 for a couple of days. Um, Not great, but one hard week, whatever, we get through it. And then we start the peak week again. And the second peak, we did some slightly different things. We did a front load both times, but the second time, what we did is Monday, that initial highest carb day was substantially higher, basically to try to purposely spill over a little bit. And then we cut it much more sharply to let it clean up, and then a little bump at the end, rather than the first time it was just all smoother, basically. So I think that worked better. And then the morning of the show, I made sure to do a better job with my sodium and water and everything. And we peaked way better for this. Like I looked so much leaner on that second show that I had lost another pound or so, but like I don't think the look can be explained just by a tiny bit less fat, right? Like it was just a much better peak. And so I was very, very happy with that. That was super exciting to see. And also just like purely intellectually, like all this stuff kind of makes sense in concept, but to actually see it play out and feel it in my body play out, so cool. And so I felt great about that. We get up on stage, bigger show. I think this time there was, I think 6 of us in the novice and 7 in the open, I want to say.
Nice.
So still
Good
not
numbers.
huge, but more, yeah. And this one was actually back like a hometown show for I flew back home to the Midwest and was able to see my family, and they were in the crowd, which was amazing. And some friends from back home came, and so that was really, really cool. So I had like some, an even bigger support group for that one. And then we get on stage, and I wound up getting second in the novice again, which yet again I was like, I know I'm getting first, dude. Like I knew it when I was up there, because again my posing was easily the best. My conditioning was, if not the best, tied for the best. I just wasn't as big. And I was like, I know they have to value all these things equally, right? That's all part of it. But they went with the dude who was bigger, and subjective judging is what it is, but it is a little bit annoying nonetheless. But is what it is. But then in the open, I think I got, what did I get? Third or fourth? I can't remember. I think fourth, maybe. Which, again, the person who won first place absolutely deserved first place. He was legit shredded. He won his pro card. Like he easily the best bodybuilder there. And then the 2 other guys who got second and third, I have a hard time justifying placing behind both of them. But hey, what do I know, right? It's up to the judges ultimately. But um, so yeah, while of course I would love to have placed higher and all that kind of stuff, it's the placing was always secondary to me. Um, it was even further down the list, to be honest. I almost didn't care about it for the longest time, and then I got up there, and I was like, wow, I actually care about this a lot more than I thought. Like this is awesome. So that was a cool feeling, just to find out that I actually really love the competitive aspect. and it's not just about the journey and the process. And yeah, man. So I came off that second show and I just felt fantastic. I cried a bunch again, because now the season's over also. And, I just went out and hugged my mom and dad, and, we were like, let's go get Subway and whatever. So it was great, dude. I have no complaints at all. I feel like I, exactly what I wanted out of the process was just to learn more about myself and like, level up as a human. That was always kind of the goal. And not only did I get that, but I also was like, man, this competitive bodybuilding thing is cool. And that was one of the things that, I was on the phone with Ryan later that night, and he was just like, you're a bodybuilder now, right? Like, you are part of it now. And I was like, hell yeah, man. Like, it feels different, once you finally do a season, it just
Yeah.
felt a little bit different. So, yeah, it was an amazing journey. I loved it.
That's so cool. Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to touch on actually from that. And again, drawing out like big lessons. I think one that I always recommend to, like, I work with quite a lot of first time competitors, and I'm always like, I don't know why it happens quite a lot. They pick one show and they're just like, yeah, that's the show I'm going to do. And I'm like, please, can we do at least two? Because like you said, you put in so much time and effort to get 20 minutes on stage, and then you can learn so much from that first stage appearance. Like you said, it's notoriously shows. I remember it happened to me at Worlds. The tanners were like rushing me. They're like, we're going to put your glaze on because you're going to be on in like 10 minutes. And I was like, really? And I was like, all right, let's get the sodium in. Let's get the pre-stage stuff going. And then it was like, I don't know, it felt like 2 hours later, but it was easily another hour until I was on stage. So it happens on every level. Like, that's the pro world. Like, I tend to find the smaller shows tend to be better organized, like with fewer competitors. But obviously it was well organized until that point of timings. But like, everyone's in the same boat. You did the right thing in terms of that stoic, just like, hey, I've controlled what I can control, but not what others can't. I guess a big lesson for you was how important fluid and sodium can be on show day, and how that can really influence your look. I wonder if there's a stress element there too with you, where you're a bit anxious first show, running around. That can play havoc with your look. And again, another reason to do another show there, which is so cool. And then, I mean, the realization that you're a competitive bodybuilder, right? So you actually care about placings. It's hard because it's reconciling being focused. I think it's something I spoke to Eric Helms about, because he's very process oriented, all of that. It's reconciling. You can be process oriented with also having competitive like goals. You just have to be careful in how you manage that, and realize like the final lesson is how subjective the sport can be. I don't think really anyone who has placed, I don't know, outside of the top three, or even within that, if you haven't placed first, you're pretty much like, I think I could have been here. Sometimes it goes in your favor. I definitely feel like sometimes, like, and I mean, if you ask someone, oh, you won, it's probably few and far between that competitors be like, it was a gift. Whereas a lot of people feel like they've been robbed if they haven't placed that high. But the feeling of winning is like unreal. When I won my first show, I cried, like literally. I was just like, wow, that's a weird feeling I did not expect to ever feel. Awesome. But I've way more often been in positions where you are, where like you're not placing as highly as you maybe thought or could have. And you just have to not make it about that, and be like, hey, there's so much of the process, and wow, I look like that, and I brought that to stage, I did what I needed to do, which is so great.
When I saw pictures, I was like, that's me? Are you serious? Like, because like looking in the mirror, it doesn't look the same, right?
Or you take photos. Like, you're checking photos are normally the worst looking ones, right? You're like, what the fuck? I look like shit.
Exactly. I was sending pictures to Ryan, and I was like, I set up my phone, and I was, hitting the poses and stuff. And my girlfriend was like, she was watching me. She was standing like, over the side. She was like, can I take some pictures of you? Because like your phone is not doing it. And I was like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. And so she took some pictures, and I was just like, my jaw dropped, man. Like, it was crazy. I posted some on my, they're in one of my story highlights in there. It's like the ones that I'm
pretty
clearly
sure
Airbnb, tan and everything. I was like, wow, that's, but dude, you see, it can be really shocking. That was a cool feeling.
It's a tricky one, because it's even frustrating as a competitor. Like, again, you might look worse at a show, but it's because of the stage lighting or the photographer's not as good, and you kind of have an expectation for those things. But sometimes like you might look better just in your home gym, like where you can control those things, and like you get a gnarly pump and you get some overhead lighting and someone's on their iPhone. I have reasonable cameras now, you get better photos there, and it's like, right, like that's interesting. But ultimately what matters is how you look on stage. Actually, this I don't know if I touched on it, the subjectivity of the sport. We touched on that, and how you just have to realize, again, you might get a gift in future and you're going to get robbed at times, but you just have to focus on what you can do better. And I think you probably have a good understanding as well of the judging criteria, which I think unfortunately quite a few people don't. And they're just like, hey, I was the leanest, why didn't I win? It's like, but symmetry is also a thing. And unfortunately, body fat can help with symmetry sometimes. And symmetry gets judged first too. So I'm always like, hey, symmetry just, that is weighed a bit more heavily than muscularity and condition, unfortunately, which I feel like those things are a bit more in your control, especially the condition part, although obviously genetics play a role in that too. But like you said, the posing, that's something you were very proud of, and you really made sure to nail that. What did your posing kind of process look like through prep?
Basically it was programmed in, right, to everything. We started, I don't even remember how many weeks out it was, maybe like 12, 15 weeks, like a long time. And basically it was like, okay, we're just going to hit all the poses and hold it for 10 seconds. Something relatively easy, right? And then the next week, all right, we're going to do 12 seconds, and then 14. You just keep building it up. So that it was sort of a combo of practicing the poses and like feeling out, playing with different variations, whatever, seeing what looks the best, but also building up the endurance. Because anybody who's been to a show, you see people who are like a statue and it's beautiful, and you see people who are like super shaky, and then they have to like relax and take a breath and then get back into it. And not only is that distracting and doesn't look the best, but you're being judged every moment you're on that stage, right? So if you're relaxing and you blow your breath out and your stomach kind of distends a little bit, or like slouching, and you just notice that, right? So that was such a massive goal, was like, okay, I gotta have that endurance, because I want to, when they call a pose, I want to get into it immediately. I want to be the first one in that pose, and then I want to look like a statue and not move, whatever. And I did that, right? It was awesome. I think the thing that could be improved with it for sure is continuing to play with different, slight variations of how I am, just to show off the physique differently or whatever. Because I like, my pose is very basic, right? Like I haven't been doing it long enough to like really refine it yet. But doing those things, or like adding little flares here and there when you go to transition to a different pose, those things that I think can really add something. But I just didn't do that yet. So I think that's the next step, or like the individual routine and making sure that that's really good, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was super basic. Just starting, I downloaded some kind of stopwatch app on my phone that you can set like, I think it's like an interval timer, actually, now that I think about it, because you can set the time length, and then you can set the rest period length and how many intervals it does. So I set it, whatever, 18 things for whatever time frame I want to hold the pose. And then there was like a 5-second gap between each one. So then, I would hit the pose and hold it, timer would beep, and I would, in my head, think about quarter turn to the right, get into it. It beeps again. That's the start. Once it beeps, then I do the next one, right? And it made it pretty seamless. And just every week I would bump up the time and keep it simple, right? Simple works a lot of time,
For sure. Yeah, that's something I made sure of doing this year, and making sure I had a timer. Like you said, I just YouTube like an interval timer of, I think I got up to 40 seconds. I was like, nice. Holding, great. But also transitioning. But I also learned from that, I was like, there's some poses you really need, like you'll be in for a while, like front relaxed. You're going to be in that a while, and it's tough. Whereas the side relaxed poses, they don't tend to hold you in those as long, and they're comparatively much easier. Yeah. So I may even try and individualize like the time that I spend in each one, just because I don't know about you, Jake, but posing is one of my least favorite parts of the prep, because it just gets so arduous. Like you're so fatigued already. I guess the good thing is it does act as a bit of like expenditure. I think we have some research on
Sure.
like how it can
Sure.
be a fair bit of expenditure, but I
Yeah.
prefer to walk on the treadmill and look at my phone. Like
Oh, man.
the posing
Yeah, I
just,
hated it.
and a good point on the little tweaks, they can go a long way. I know for me, I've made some like, like my front double bicep. I don't think many people hit it like I hit it, but for me, it's the only way I can try and make it look all right. I have like the hip twist and like
Yeah.
contort my torso to look a bit broader. But those little things really do like add more than a percentage point. But having the symmetry around those basics down, your head and shoulders above other people, especially as a judge, you see someone come out and hit that front relax, like, you know, a front relax should be hit, and they're stoic and like they can hold it like a statue, like you said. Yeah, you're already like, I should keep my eye on that person because they've done their homework.
Yeah, man, for sure. I'm so grateful that like people like you and Eric and like a bunch of other people that have just talked about all this stuff. Like that's what helped me have good expectations of, you know, everything that matters, and you know, make sure that your posing looks good, you know, all the things, and also just the knowing how subjective it can be, and all like, so like, thank you, right, and thank you to everybody who has talked about this stuff publicly, because it's massively helpful to first timers like I was here, you know.
Was there anything during the prep that you didn't expect to learn that you did learn? Does anything, when I say that, does anything come to like mind where you're just like, man, that was something I was weird, or I wasn't expecting to learn about myself or the process?
About the about bodybuilding specifically, I don't think so. About myself, absolutely. I think the okay, we're gonna get deep here for a second. This is what bodybuilding is all about to me, right? This is why I love it. Is that I learned finally, and this is gonna sound so stupid and obvious, but I finally learned what's important in life and how to do it. I'm not great at doing it yet, but I feel like something clicked, right? So for me, I have um, from my dad, who I love dearly, the workaholic gene is like it's in there. You're like I can't, you know, and it's a constant urge in my brain, like, oh, you could be doing this, you could be productive doing this, you could, you know, all this stuff, and to the point where it's, you know, it gets detrimental, right? Like I have a hard time relaxing. I have a hard time, you know, Kaylee and I will go out to do whatever, and I'm just like distracted half the time thinking about like, oh man, I got to read this paper, I got to work on this thing, I got to make this post, I got to whatever. And that sucks, right? Like that's, you know, what I've learned ultimately at the end of the day, your career is awesome, right? And building a career is really fun and all that stuff. I love it. But at the end of the day, you know, when we're about to die, we're going to think about the relationships that we've had and the interactions with people and the connections. Like that's what matters, you know? And it's taken me 31 years to learn that, and to internalize it, I think, more importantly. And so what this prep, I think, did for me was I had to really learn how to compartmentalize, because I'm very busy, right? And which was on purpose to prep while I was super busy, because I just wouldn't have time to think about being hungry. But because of everything that's going on, I had to get better at compartmentalizing and being present at the task that I'm doing. And then I just sort of had this like, wait, you know, when you're hanging out with somebody, that's the same thing. Compartmentalize and be there, right? So I started doing that, and I think, you know, prep is really it really forced me to learn how to do that and to just clear all the other stuff out of the way, learn how to slow down, learn how to just close your eyes, take a deep breath. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Let's just do that. And it sounds so simple, but that's really hard for me, and I'm still getting better at it. Like I'm not, you know, she'll be the first to tell you I'm not amazing at it, right? But I am getting better, and I think that's the thing, dude, is that all this, like, you know, there's cool career stuff that's come from the prep, right? Like just getting to talk to more people, make connections, you get content out of it. I'm doing a case study that helps, you know, academically stuff, you know, all this stuff. But I think about what I actually have enjoyed the most and what's meant the most to me, and it's talking to people, right? It's the connections that I've made through this. It's the community feel. And so like that really furthered that lesson too. Like, dude, that's the thing. That's what matters. Focus more on that. And so now as I've come out of that prep, and some of the time commitment to that has gone away, all the posing practice, I'm still doing some cardio, but less. And there's just a little bit more time, a little bit more mental energy, physical energy. And so I'm not like, okay, career stuff is still very important to me. I don't think I'll ever get away from that. And I don't want to, right? Like I enjoy that. But let's take some of that energy and divert it and be like, okay, I could do more career stuff, but I could do more connection with other human being stuff. And that's what I'm gonna do. Right. So that's like my biggest goal moving forward, which again sounds so, it's like I finally learned how to be a human being, but like that's the goal moving forward, is focus more on that stuff, spend more time connecting, and like not just being, you can be in a room with somebody and talking to them or whatever, but you're not super engaged and super present with them, right? um it's more shallow. Or you can be super engaged and in the moment, and it's like a deep connection, and that's the goal, is to be more on that side, right? So um, yeah, that's the biggest thing I got out of prep, dude, and very grateful for that, because I think someday when I'm super old and thinking back on life, I'm going to be grateful for all those things more so than oh, this post got that many likes. How cool is that, or whatever.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We create the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. Additionally, you get access to our exclusive Revive Stronger member site, where you'll be able to watch over hundreds of hours worth of educational content. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yes. I love that, actually. It makes me think of like the going trope is people want to get a six pack. And it's like, but once you get the six pack, are you going to be happy? It's like, it's actually not the six pack that's make you happy or what's make you confident. It's that maybe you were able to achieve that thing. It was kind of like the process of getting towards that was the vehicle that gave you all the outside journey benefits. So it's like bodybuilding is what we do to get all those community like connections and those benefits, which it could be anything. It could be another sport. It could be, I don't know, what have you, anime, and you go to like conventions and you dress up, and that's where you make those connections. Because very similar to you, it's like in a really weird way, bodybuilding is very isolating, but then it also forces you to go to these shows and make all these connections and talk to these people. And then because it's part of our career, we talk to people online, and you really get to know people on a deep level. And then when you have these common passions, like you're like friends, just like from the get-go. It's like, I can't remember who, there's like a meme where it's like, did we just become best friends? And it's like anyone at a bodybuilding show, it's like, you can kind of just have that connection. So yeah, I love that kind of lesson, because it's important for those listening who aren't, again, I think a lot of our audience is good at this. And I think like we're good examples of this, where we're not just doing shows and like winning, and that's what gives us the reward. It's like we're going to shows and we're showing up, and we get the reward from other like outside things, intangibles. And I think focusing on that is a really important thing, because then, if you keep persisting, you fall in love with that process. You never know what, I mean, I've been able to achieve that pro card after 10 years. It's like, it's not really the pro card, it's what that signifies. Like I was able to stick to this thing for 10 years, despite really not having a whole lot of success initially. But I just fell in love with discovering the pursuit and having something to get, like, to invest time and energy into. And I think it's similar for you, and probably similar to a lot of the listeners too. But I've never really thought about it the way you talked about it, where it's like, it's just a vehicle for those other elements that are actually the important thing.
Yeah, man. I love that. And seeing, it was the same thing like when Eric got his, the WNBF pro card. It's like, it's so inspiring, not because you got the cool pro card. Like that's obviously that's cool, right? Like let's not let's not pretend like that isn't just a cool thing in and of itself, but it's exactly what you said. It's what it symbolizes. It's the not giving up. It's the perseverance. It's the all the research and frustration and blood, sweat, and tears you had to do to figure out how to get there, and all that stuff. And it's so inspiring to me to see that. You know, me being earlier in my competitive bodybuilding journey, right? That I was like, man, you know, maybe if I stick with this for 10 years, maybe I can do that, right? Who knows? The only way to find out is to try, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I guess I would love, you know, if you had any other like surprising things that you learned, even if it's not just from this one, but from competing in general, I would love to hear that too. That's always my favorite thing to hear people talk about.
Yeah, so thank you for asking. It's a weird thing. What I realize is I'm more anxious when I'm like out of prep and in off season than I am in prep. The kind of apathy emotion that I get can be really productive and helpful. For example, I don't like flying. And so that holds me back traveling. And this year, actually went on a cruise earlier in the year with my family. So did that. That was great. But I flew to Switzerland, I flew to Netherlands, and eventually flew to Boston. And it's like, wow, like you wouldn't fly that much normally, not even for like holidays with people you love, because you get anxious and concerned. And I don't think it's because, oh, bodybuilding is such an important thing to me and it's more important than going on holiday with people I love. I think it's that like I lose emotion, and so I just don't become so stressed. So things that normally would stress me a lot don't. So I'm like, how can I learn from that? Like, how can I gather that? It's just very interesting to me. But it's nice because I think that exposure even just helped. Like the fact that I can just go and fly and I'm way less stressed than I normally would be. Yeah. So I get a little bit of exposure, and so that will pay into my off seasons when I'm, for whatever reason, get a little bit more anxious and stressed.
I hate flying, dude. Every time I'm like, okay, I might not come back. Like, just, you know.
The flights were so smooth as well. Like the one back in particular was just like almost zero turbulence. I was like, man, this is great. Beautiful. But traveling, what's the furthest afield you've traveled before, Jake?
Oh, geez, not far. I think it's like a 4-hour flight. It was the furthest I've ever gone. Just like from Florida to Colorado. Like,
so have you been out of the States? No.
No, I really want to come to the UK. Flying
we've got to run a seminar or something, force you here.
Bro, let's do it. I'll be there in a second. That'll give me the excuse. That'll make me not as scared, right? But yeah, I would really, there's so much cool stuff in the UK I'd love to see. Just Europe in general, I would love to check out, or like I got to go to Japan at some point, right? You have to.
Bucket list.
So there's definitely stuff that it's so funny because growing up, I'm from a very tiny town, right? Like small, it's cornfields. There's one stoplight, like very small. And I was always like, I don't care about traveling, like whatever. I'm just doing my thing. You know, I got my computer at home. I can play video games. I can read a book. I can do whatever. But now as I've, you know, flown a handful of times and traveled a little bit more, every time I do it, like you said, that exposure, you get a little bit less anxious. And every time I'm like, this was so worth it. Like, this was awesome, man. I'm going to remember this forever. So cool. And so now I definitely think about it a lot more than I used to, how cool traveling is. And just seeing, like, dude, the world it's small, but it's big, man. Like, there's so much stuff out there. And every time I've visited a new state here in the US or a new city or whatever, I'm like, wow, like, it's like a different planet. This is cool, you know? So yeah, I definitely want to, sorry, I completely sidetracked your
no, it's
what
good.
you're saying, but yeah, it's awesome. I definitely want to do it more.
But I guess that's a benefit of, like, this year I had not planned to compete abroad apart from Worlds. I was hoping to qualify to compete as an amateur at Worlds. And then I just was like, oh, there's this Netherlands show. I kind of want a bit of a warm up before the WNBF UK show. So let's just kind of go do it. And I was like, umming and ahhing about it because I was like, man, I've got to fly. It's like Airbnb, all of this. Imagine if I didn't do that. My whole season would have been completely different. I didn't end up doing any UK shows. So yeah, it kind of taught me, like, hey, if something's a bit uncomfortable, like, take the risk, take the plunge. Yeah. And also that bodybuilding can also act as a bit of an avenue for holidays potentially. Yeah. And Yeah, if I can stay leaner and make gains, like do a Dirk. How many times do I say Dirk on this podcast? He's like, he must be right up there. But like, he obviously makes progress because he doesn't need much recovery time and so on and so forth. But that could mean, like, I don't know, I could compete more frequently and use it as a bit of a holiday as well, type of thing. So it's cool that, bodybuilding can serve as, community, travel, like all those things, if you want it to. I think that's kind of where it comes to, is like, it can be whatever you make of it. And it's just important. The negatives can definitely crop up if you're not careful, though. And it's just kind of doing your research, being well educated, or having someone in your corner, like you have Ryan, your coach, Cliff, I had this season, that can help, or just one another even, where you can bounce ideas off one another. Jake, out of interest, what was your least favorite thing about competing? Is there anything that stands out?
Honestly, this kind of goes back to what you said earlier about stuff you didn't expect. The tan is so cold. Like, I did not like that at all. Like, I don't mind, for anyone who's never done it, right? Like, you're basically just in this big room in the hotel. You're just pretty much, you're 99% naked, right? Just
Did they give you a sock?
Yeah.
They gave you a sock at least.
You get your sock. And, that's for exactly what you think it is. And, you go back and it's just, you're getting the spray tan, then you got to go stand in front of a fan and get dried. And then you go back and I was so freezing cold that I think that was the worst part. That was the worst part. Other than, I think, process oriented stuff, that's sort of a jokey answer, but it's also serious. But, I really was dreading the posing practice as we got in there. Like, I'm so glad I did it. But man, it's just so, like, because I have to do it first thing in the morning also, just because if I don't, I won't do it. So I would do that. And I really just I'm so thirsty when I wake up. I just want to chug a bunch of water, but I can't do that because then I'm bloated. And so that got really, I think you said arduous earlier, which is the perfect word, so that was annoying. I think that's probably the worst things, like the social aspects and stuff wasn't that bad. I had to say no to some things, but it really wasn't a huge deal. Like all my friends, everyone in the lab, like they all know that I'm prepping. It's not, so that was helpful. And I can recognize that that's sort of a unique situation. A lot of people, the close friends and family around them might not understand what they're doing or relate to it or support it, unfortunately, or, whatever. So that can certainly be harder, for others. But yeah, a lot of that stuff wasn't horrible. You know what? One other thing was this really cool lesson that I learned, right, about, being present and being more engaged and all that stuff. The earliest days of trying to do that were hard because I would try to do it and I just drop the ball. And, there's people can tell, right, when you're there with them, but you're not really there with them. People can tell. And then it just feels disingenuous, and it almost is worse than just not even being there, right? Like a lot of times they're like, dude, like just tell me and stay home and whatever, it's fine. So doing that early on wasn't great. My girlfriend is super patient, but she also is honest, and so she would tell me, and then that caused some tension. And there was definitely some very difficult conversations of me having to like really hear what she's saying and like really understand, and like I just felt really bad, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, oh, this sucks, like I suck, this is bad, I gotta work on this. And whenever you're trying to do any kind of behavior change, it's so hard. But so that was hard. But now that I feel like I'm starting to come through the other side, that again, I'm far from perfect, but the further I get through that process, the easier and better it's been. So like that sucked. But yeah, overall, most 99% of this process has just been awesome. I don't know. I feel lucky in a lot of ways, I guess.
That's so good to hear. Yeah, it makes me think of, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but it's like when you're deep in prep, you're like a phone on battery saver mode, but you've got like 10 apps that are draining that, which are like, again, you're posing, cardio, training, like what am I going to eat here? And just like all those. And then you have like your girlfriend app that's like trying to tell you about their problems, and you're like, man, I've got to focus on this little battery that I'm putting towards all these other things, that if I drop one of those, I could run myself into the ground. Or Maslow's hierarchy of needs is something I kept talking about, where I was like, man, I'm feeling this at the moment, where I'm just so focused on staying alive. Those fundamental basics.
Which is so hard to. Yeah, because the girlfriend app is like, should be the most important one, right? Like but it's so hard when they're all competing for your energy. And that's actually a really good analogy. I like that a lot. Because I definitely had that too of, we're trying to talk about something, but I'm just like, like just trying to like survive, like you said, and it's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Like, do you think we should?
What about you? Again, I'd love to hear your thing.
Sorry, I think there was a bit of lag, but it's like
go.
she's trying to talk to you about, I don't know, a trouble at work, or do you think we should like buy a new wardrobe, or like, I don't know, what about these bed sheets? We need some new bed sheets. Like, what color do you think, this one or this one? You're like, I do literally couldn't give a flying toss, like especially in prep. 100%. So, but you're like, you can't tell them that because they care about your opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. What was the question? It was least favorite thing. I would say my least favorite thing was, so it's energy levels, probably the least favorite, just fundamental big thing where I just drop a pen on the floor and you're like, or you're about to piss your pants, but you're like, I don't want to have to get up to go to the loo. It's like, I'm just going to sit and wet here and wet myself because I'm that tired. Like that sounds fine, like whatever. So that's one. And then my mood got real bad this time around. I definitely felt, me and Cliff took me further than I've ever been before. Yeah. And my mood was not good towards the end. And unfortunately, I can say this, it sounds like I abused my dog. I didn't ever abuse my dog. Let me be very clear about that. But I definitely got very frustrated and short with my dog. And it was just like, I just didn't want anything. Like they'd try and come and lick me and be like, give me attention. I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
We just, walks are functional. You don't get to sniff. Got to do this thing. And it's funny how quickly that shifted post show. Like when I came back from New York, I was already like, it was like the expectation of coming in and being annoyed that my dog was jumping at me. Whereas actually it was like, I love you. This is amazing. I was like, wow, that's such a weird thing to happen. So yeah, that was probably my least favorite thing. Cause that's not like me either. It's not a nice way to be. Jake, future plans. What does the future entail for you? You obviously mentioned your case study. I don't know the turnaround on that, if you can talk about that at all.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't have the results yet because it's still going, but this is, again, as humbly as I can possibly say this is going to be by far the most comprehensive case study we have.
Awesome.
Which is only because so many other people have done stuff. Well, so many, there's not a ton. I mean, there's like a dozen of them, right? But there's enough that we can see what people have reported and what they have not reported. And, you read it and it's just like, man, it'd be cool if they measured this. I'll do it. You know what I mean? So, I'm very, very excited, man. So basically here's the rundown, right? So there's different time scales for things. So every day I have body weight, macros, step count, sleep data. I think that's everything for all the daily stuff. And sleep is like total sleep, deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, sleeping, breathing rate. Like there's just a bunch of stuff. I'm so tired of wearing this stupid Fitbit, dude, but it's the only thing that would measure the sleep. So we got all that stuff every day. We've got every week I'm doing a bunch of psychological stuff. So there's motivation to train, just 1 to 10 scale, perceived recovery, again, subjective 1 to 10 scale. There is eating behaviors. There is body image. And then, so those are every week. Every 4th week, because this is how the scale is validated, which seems really silly to me, but whatever. Every 4th week, I also do perceived stress and perceived sleep quality. So we'll have all of that psychological stuff. And then every 2 weeks, I go into the lab and we do blood draws to look at testosterone, leptin, and thyroid. We do body fat percentage on the in-body scale, which isn't perfect, but it is validated, right? So it's the best scale that we could get, basically. Shout out to Grant Tinsley's lab for doing that study and figuring out which one's the best. So we have blood draws, body fat percentage, standardized photos. We've got resting metabolic rate, blood pressure, resting heart rate. What else do we have? Performance tests on 3 different exercises, muscle thickness on 3 different sites, bicep, chest, and quad, which will also correlate to the exercises. So we'll be able to look at those relationships, which could be cool. Skin folds at 8 different sites, ultrasound fat thickness at those same 8 sites to see how those change. We do a treadmill walk wearing the mask that can measure my energy expenditure during that. Because in theory, your body gets more efficient over time. You burn less calories doing the same thing. So we'll be able to look at that. And I think that's it for the every 2 weeks stuff. And then we also, every 4 to 8 weeks, have done qualitative interviews, where it's just basically trying to fill in the gaps of all the other stuff that could be interesting. So that's all the testing we're doing. And then
That's awesome.
we had all of that baseline. We did a bunch of sessions at baseline to get like really good normative values, which is super important. And another thing that none of these other case studies have done, that case studies are great because you can get super detailed on usually one subject, not always, sometimes it's 2 or 3 or whatever, but super detailed. But the downside, statistically, it's really difficult to deal with because there's no means, there's, things between people, and it's really difficult to get good measures of the precision of the measurements, right? Like you can do it, but a lot of them haven't really done it very well. So we made a point to do it really well. So like I have dozens of baseline measurements of the same muscle thickness measurement, right? That we can look at the variation there, get a really good idea of just normal fluctuations or measurement error, so that then throughout the dieting period, we can be super confident whether or not these changes were due to measurement error or if they're true changes in muscle thickness or fat thickness or RMR, whatever. So that'll be great. So like we've been very careful with the design and just the ungodly amount of measurements that we've done so that we can make really strong inferences from the stats. So that'll be great. But yeah, baseline stuff all the way through the dieting period. And then we're going to go all the way through the recovery period until we restore baseline values of things, which unfortunately for me, could be a very long time. And, there's some data on testosterone not coming back for like several months, so I'm not super excited about that, but it is what it is, and it'll be awesome data. And, by the end, we'll be able to not just see all that data and see the changes that are happening, but to me, what is even more interesting, I think, is we can start looking at relationships and say like, okay, well, testosterone coming back was most strongly related to regaining your muscle mass or regaining your fat mass or your performance getting better or whatever it is, right? Whatever we find. But then for people out in the real world, you're not going to be measuring your testosterone all the time, probably, but you'll now have these other little things that you can look at and feel more confident about. Oh, okay, I am back in a good place now, or whatever. So I'm really excited to look at those relationships and see what we can find. And yeah, man, I'm so tired of getting my blood drawn. I'm so tired of it, but it's going to be super cool. And huge shout out to Alex and Scott in our lab, who they're doing all this, because it's a lot for me getting all the testing done, but I can't do those things on myself, right? And it has to be the same person doing the test every time, because that decreases the error a lot. So those 2 dudes have been just amazing and put so much time and effort into this, and this would not be possible without them. So I got to give them a huge shout out to just be helping me and dedicating so much time to do all this testing and having to learn the skill of doing the test before we even did it. Like huge amount of work for them. So, but yeah, man, I'm very excited. I've been looking at the data a little bit, and it's really interesting to see, just looking at, when you actually plot everything alongside the variance and you can see the cool graphs, it's like, oh, it's so satisfying. But to see how baseline was up here and then it kind of comes down. And then now that I've started eating a little bit more again, like starting to tick back up, it's just, I don't know. Yeah. It's just cool to see it visually. Right. But yeah, that's the case study. I don't know how much longer we'll have to go. We'll see. But once we can finally stop all the testing, then I don't think it's going to take a super long time to get it out there, because it's pretty straightforward in terms of the analysis and the writing and stuff. So yeah, I'm stoked.
That's really cool. Yeah, there's some things you mentioned there that as a coach, I think I, to some extent, gather that data with my clients, but you don't see it really in case reports unless they kind of interview the person a little bit here or there. And so it's nice that you're plugging the holes within the data that's out there already. And actually, out of interest, Jake, because one of the ones I like using Libido as something that I ask clients about, male clients, mostly to get a gauge of testosterone. And I know that's not perfect. It's like asking someone how hungry they are as like, are you in a surplus deficit? Like, what's your energy balance? Because it's like, well, hungers can be impacted by so many environmental factors and what have you. Same libido can be. But is that something that are you getting subjectively asked that as alongside, so then you can measure that alongside testosterone?
Yes, we're doing that stuff in the interviews, making sure to talk about that. We tossed around tracking, some other more invasive indirect measures of libido.
Frequency
like when you first wake up in the morning.
The snake. Oh, okay. No, wait. Mine was worse.
That was suggested, and I was like, I don't want to have to write that down on a note.
Yeah, that's
man. Let me just. Well, I'm going to leave that joke where it is.
For me, as a coach, I'd find that really fascinating, because it's not something like. It's too far to ask clients. Like I'll talk to female clients about are they menstruating, that sort of thing, but I don't have that degree of data from my clients, because I don't know how many of them would be comfortable about telling me that. I mean, to be honest, I tell my coach anything. I've had some weird stuff happen to me in prep that I haven't spoken about publicly before.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I don't care at all. Like once, like the last pictures that I sent Ryan, right? Like the night before, my tan was on. I didn't want to deal with putting my trunks on and stuff, right? So like I just take the pictures naked, and then like I'll just use whatever on the photo editor thing.
Oh, at least you did that.
Put a little black, whatever. But like you just kind of stop caring about a lot of that stuff eventually. And like it's like I'm paying you a lot of money. I trust you completely to do this. I know you're not gonna be weird. So relatable.
Actually, I actually don't mind. I don't know if I have spoken about it publicly. I don't really mind, because I don't think it's that like big a deal. But this is going to sound really weird. But I don't know if you'll find it. I think you will find it interesting. But like I have never regularly had I can't remember ever having a wet dream as a teenager.
Okay.
And I think twice in this prep I had them. And I had one back in 2017 when I did like a really heavy deplete. And then in the refeed, I had one that night. And it's happened to me a few times when I've gone through like heavy refeeds. And then I've had one. And I'm like, what the hell? This
Carbs
is
are just
like,
that amazing. Man.
Doesn't make sense. I haven't had any in any sort of like months at the moment. So there's nothing post-show. But I'm like, what's the physiological reason for that? That's like funny. A huge stress drop, and then like don't know. Maybe testosterone increases acutely from like a huge refeed. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. Weird. I haven't noticed a trend like that's super rare for me as well, right? I don't think I've ever had it while like being super lean or being deep into a diet. That's super interesting. I wonder if it is just a big stress relief thing.
Yeah, it's so weird. But I mentioned it to Cliff this time around. He didn't really. It didn't sound like he'd had experience with it with other like I thought he might have had experience with other, like, because he's coached so many people. I don't know how many people are that like able to be honest and just don't care about saying it. But if there's anyone listening who's been through that, I'd be very interested if you've had that, or if you've had it and you don't want to publicly put your name to it. Fair enough.
That's fair. That's fair.
But very cool. I'm excited to see that case study and see what we might be able to pull from it. And I appreciate you putting yourself through that, because man, prep's hard enough, let alone having, again, talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and being on low battery. Like that's another big task and ask for you. The guys dealt with me being grumpy here and there because I had to be fasted for the blood draws and RMR testing and all that stuff, right? Fasting and no caffeine. So they dealt with me being grumpy
for a good amount of time. So we get through it, right? It'll be worth it. Yeah.
And then, so you've got that study. And then in terms of your own bodybuilding, is there anything you're specifically focusing on off-season wise? And have you already thought about when you might step back on stage?
Yeah. So main focus is, funny enough, abs is a big one. Because I just don't really have abs at all. And I think I will be a little bit more comfortable in the off season if I have more muscle there that can, just make me not look better, but just feel a little bit better about how I look, I suppose. But abs are a big one. Chest and arms, huge. Those are, I'm not deep enough into bodybuilding to really have true weak points. Like everything is kind of a weak point still, but I mean, I've been lifting for 10 years at this point, right? Like you can kind of, there's some stuff that we can emphasize. So chest and arms and abs are kind of the main areas of emphasis. So that's kind of the main like training thing is like, let's just try to hammer those. The nutritionally trying to stay a bit leaner than I have in the past. I mean, I got on stage at 160, 159, something like that. And like, I don't need to be 205. As much as I want to be over 200 pounds, I just don't need to be. And it just makes life harder when you go to try to compete again. So I would love to be more in the, 180, 185, somewhere in that kind of range. I think just be a little bit more manageable. But at the same time, I want to enjoy, like, I just love food, if I'm being honest, right? So I want to leave myself that flexibility. So finding that balance, it's a big thing. But overall, it's sort of this idea of, like I said earlier, like I feel like a bodybuilder now, right? Like I want to maximize this off season. This will be my first like true bodybuilding off season. In the past, I was always powerlifting at the same time, or after that first attempted prep, I had a bunch of stuff going on that just my training was very inconsistent and very suboptimal, and like there was months at a time where I was struggling to even go to the gym. I just didn't want to, and so adherence was not great. I don't feel like I really put muscle on since then, if I'm being completely honest. That's a few years of like, man, that's a lot of time. So that's the main thing here is like, let's maximize this thing and let's really just lean into it and have fun and, just train super hard. And you know what I mean? Just kind of not overthink it and all that kind of stuff. And Ryan is so helpful for that too, of just keeping you on track with like, what's actually important. Are you eating your protein? Are you training really hard? Are you recovering? Cool. Then we can layer on little stuff, but like never let that stuff shift in favor of these little tiny details. But so yeah, I have a good person helping me direct the ship, and that's the direction we're heading in terms of when to compete again. I'm so excited to do it again already. Like I can't wait, dude. I know Colby, who we mentioned earlier, who, shout out to him, recently graduated with his PhD from AUT out with Dr. Helms. So that's huge congrats to him. But he is trying to compete next year actually, but then wants to, his rough goal is like that, and then maybe again in 2028. And so I was like, it'd be fun to do it with you in 2028. Why not?
Nice.
So that's kind of in my head, but I'm also like, that's so far away. Who knows if I can actually get myself to wait 4 more years? I might have to do it sooner. But we'll see. So much of it also depends on what else is going on in life at the time. And, there's never a perfect time to prep, but like, I think there are times that are explicitly bad times, so we'll see. But that's kind of what's roughly in my head, is at least give myself a solid couple years to really see what I can do with a proper off season. And maybe I can have a Steve Hall style transformation. That'd be pretty cool. We'll see.
That's super cool. Yeah. I mean, there's always more juice to squeeze, and especially given how quote unquote suboptimal maybe some of your life and training had been, now you have just like pure specificity, and also that motivation and drive I think is pretty key. So it's exciting to like have that, and it's nice to hear you kind of have that vigor and excitement for it as well. Like it's infectious. Like I have that too, and I love it. Finally then, so business and personal life, anything ongoing on that end, anything the listeners might be interested in?
Well, I guess we have, there's a lot of cool stuff, I guess, coming out on the business end. I was, the part of why I was running around frantically the morning of my first show was, I was able to meet up with Lane Norton, cause he kind of lives out in the area. and recorded a video with him. I got some more clips that I'll post. But we have a full video. If you want to watch the full video, it's out on the YouTube and podcast. If you search The Training Arc, that is the podcast that me and Colby have been doing. That the full episode is posted there. And shameless plug, check out the rest of the podcast. We think it's great. Yes, we have that. We got some content coming out with RP. That was super cool to be invited out to go record with them and meet Dr. Mike and all the stuff, and so that was awesome, and I'm really excited for that stuff to come out. I don't know when that will come out, but I don't think it'll be a super long time. But we'll have that. We are getting very close, and maybe even by the time this episode comes out, we'll have more news. But the per session volume meta-analysis that we've been talking about forever is exceptionally close to getting out. So hopefully we can finally talk about that really soon, because people have been asking for it, and I'm super excited to talk about it. It's really interesting, but we'll have that. Otherwise, just doing our thing, coaching, doing all the stuff. I'm having a blast coaching, man. I think that competing has given me like a renewed sense of wanting to work with more competitive bodybuilders. Like I've always wanted to do that, and I've gotten to do it before, and it's amazing. But doing it all myself now, I'm just like, yeah, man, like this is. I still love powerlifting. Don't get me wrong, right? It's still great. I still love. You're just sort of non-competitive. We're in the gym just to get stronger, build some muscle, whatever. I still love all that stuff, but it's really, I don't know, man. It's a good feeling. It's just feels so exciting and fun and awesome. So that's basically what the next year and a half is we finish the PhD, is just coach, have a great time coaching, train hard, get as big as we can, do some cool research, eventually graduate and have that done. And then we'll see what's next after that, I suppose.
That sounds really exciting. And I've already checked out the interview you did with Dane Norton. That was great.
Awesome.
Really enjoyed that. I've listened to a bunch of the Training Arc podcast episodes. So
thanks, dude.
I'm definitely going to, if you like listening to Jake, if you like this kind of like slightly less formal discussion in many ways, I think people really dig that, especially if you like anime, because you guys kind of chuck in some references now and then, which is always fun. Sure. And then, very excited with the research. I'm very it's something I'm obviously we'll have to get you on to kind of discuss that in further depth and detail, but that's really exciting. And then obviously with all the coaching, so I'll definitely make sure people can check.
Awesome. Thanks. So the Training Arc stuff is, if you just, I have a website linked in my Instagram. You find it there. Just search the Training Arc on whatever podcast. I think it's on all podcast apps now, unless I messed it up again. But it should be on everything. It's on YouTube. My Instagram is still like a good kind of central hub for things. Just jake.datadrivenstrength. Or I'm now a full adult and have my own website now officially. So you just go to jakeremmert.com. You can find, coaching info and all that kind of stuff, or data-drivenstrength.com. There's other coaching stuff there. If you're more, I don't know if you are looking specifically for that stuff, but I think that's everything, unless I'm missing something. Links in bio for everything, right? But yeah, I'm stoked on the website, man. It's fun. I feel like I'm actually like, I don't know, I feel official. I have a website that's just my name.com. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, that is cool. Luckily no one had that, and you had to like pay them
exactly
for it. So yeah, guys, thank you for listening. I'll make sure that's all linked in the description, and we'll catch you next time.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.